Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Audible?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Yes.
Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Krupa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Vartigam Yatkupatam Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramanandam Shri Chaitanya. Hare Krishna. So, welcome back to our Bhakti Shastri course. We are towards the end of the chapter 15. So, yes, you can see the screen.
Yes, Swami.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Just a minute. Okay. So we saw this chapter 15 from material world to spiritual world by detachment and surrender. It was from verse 1 to 6. 7 to 11 was that if there is no detachment, then one has to undergo bondage and transmigration. From 12 to 15, we saw how Krishna is our maintainer on cosmological level, physiological level, and also on spiritual level. Finally, Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham hridishan vishnu mattasvita jnanam apohanam cha vedescha sarvair aham eva vedyo vedanta ved videha chahi. So because Krishna is a compiler of Vedas, he is the knower of Vedas. So Krishna, in summary, just offers what is their essence of Vedanta, the Trishloki Gita. And then from 19 to 20, in these two verses, which we are going to discuss now, Krishna says that knowing Krishna means knowing everything. Yes. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Namo Bhagavate
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Yo mameva sammudho
Yoma
janati purushottamam
Janati
Purushottamam
sarvavid bhajati mam
Sarvabhajati
Mam.
Mam
sarvabhavena bharata.
Sarvabhavena Bharata.
Translation.
Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharata.
So, just now we saw the flow of this chapter from 1 to 6, from verse number 1 until verse number 18. So we saw that how that the first section was talking about cutting down the tree. And then the second section was talking about that if somebody is not able to cut down that, means if somebody is not able to detach, then he has to undergo transmigration. And then from suddenly, we see that from verse number 12 onwards, there is a change in the tone of what Krishna is speaking. So now,
ऐसे बंद कर दो
yes,
नहीं हाँ बंद कर दो खुला रहने दो कोई फर्क नहीं है
Hare Krishna, can you please keep your
Prabhuji, I muted. Prabhuji, I muted.
Okay. So then suddenly Krishna has turned his topic, tone of his talk. He is here. We see that from the section 13, chapter 13. This is primarily focused on Gyanis, and till verse number 11, Krishna is speaking the language which is relevant for the Gyanis. And suddenly from verse number 12, we see that there is a shift of tone and Krishna has started talking about how he can be seen. So that is all part of bhakti, that for Vimuda Nanu Pashyanti, those who are Vimuda, those who are not Gyanis, they are Nanu Pashyanti, but then they also can know me. Even such fools, apparently the fools who are not Gyanis, they also can know me. How they can know me? They can know me by various ways. Yadaditya Gatam Teju and all those things we saw. Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva and Sarvasya Chaham Hradi Sannivishto, like that. So that is how they can know me. And they can also know that I am the Purushottama, that Krishna explained in the 16, 17, 18, 3 verses. And now here Krishna is emphatically saying, Yo mam eva asammudho janati Purushottama. That whoever knowing me as Purushottama, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, asammudho, without any doubts, sa sarva vid bhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. He then engaged himself in full devotional service unto me, O son of Bharata. So, in this verse, Krishna is using the word bhajati, and we have seen that this word bhajati has been coming in various parts in Bhagavad Gita. Chaturvida bhajante mam jana sukrutino arjuna, or bhajati mam dridhavrataha. Krishna is saying that those who are my devotees, so they worship me with great determination. So like that, this word bhajati has been coming again and again. And especially another word which Krishna is using here is sarva bhavena. with all respects is a translation, and in other way we can also see that with all emotions. Bhav, the word in bhav in Hindi means that with full of emotions. So with all emotions, with all respects, one worships the Supreme Lord, knowing him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada very wonderfully explains how even the imperfect knower, if he imperfect person, if he goes on speculating, he can never reach the conclusions. That the verse in Brahma Samhita, if somebody is traveling, panthastu koti shatavatsara sampragamyo vayo rathapi manaso munipungavana sopyastiyat prapajansinya vichintya tatve govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. That even if somebody is traveling at the speed of mind, Prabhupada explains in some of the lectures that sometimes we are traveling in the aeroplane at a very high speed, but we just imagine somebody traveling the speed of mind. So even if somebody is traveling the speed of mind, he cannot reach the conclusions or the lotus feet of the Lord. He may still be wandering in this Brahmanda, but never come to the conclusion. So that can happen only by learning from oral reception. Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport. So if somebody is hearing from right authorities, only then he can come to this understanding. Janati Purushottamam. Only then he can know the Purushottama. And then Prabhupada here very wonderfully says, in the second paragraph of the purport, here Krishna distinguishes everything very nicely, and one should hear from this source. Simply to hear like hogs is not sufficient. One must be able to understand from the authorities. And what does it mean to understand from authorities? How can we understand from authorities? So Prabhupada explains that in the next line, one should submissively hear from Bhagavad Gita that these living entities are always subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there is always this tendency of trying to be on the mood of an enjoyer. So the Purusha Bhava, as we discussed in the 13th chapter, which is the cause of the living entity's existence in the material world, the desire of fruitive enjoying mentality. So that Purusha Bhava is there, and that's why emphatic Srila Prabhupada is stressing here that one should submissively hear from Bhagavad Gita and understand that actually he is not the Supreme, he is not the enjoyer, but rather he is subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His eternal position is that of a servitude, servant, like that. And then in the next paragraph, Srila Prabhupada explains the word bhajati is also very significant. That if one is engaged in full Krishna consciousness, then it is understood that he has assimilated the conclusions of Vedic scriptures. So he has already come to the point because he is engaged in devotional service. So like that. So that is the meaning of the word bhajati. Iti guhyatamam shastram.
Iti
गुह्यतमं शास्त्रम्
Idamuktam maya natha.
Idamuktam maya
Buddhava buddhiman syat.
Buddhava buddham syat
Krita krityascha bharata.
Krishya Bharata.
Translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes. So iti guhyatamam shastram. So something is guhya, then something is guhyatara, and then something is guhyatamam. So guhya is something very secret. Guhyatara is more secret, and guhyatamam is the most confidential. So Krishna is revealing here the most confidential knowledge to whom Maya Nagha, O sinless one, or one who is of no envy. So we see similar thing Krishna is mentioning in 9th chapter also. Raja Vidya Rajaguyam Idamuktam Bhavittamam Pratyaksha Dharmam Susukham Kartum Avyam. Raja Vidya Rajaguyam. There also Krishna is using the word Rajaguhya. It is very confidential, king of all knowledge. And what is that? Devotional service. And it is iti guhyatamam shastram. And the best part of the shastra, Vedic literature, is also the devotional service. Idamuktam mayanaka. So it is explained that when Brahma ji also was trying to understand Vedic literatures, first time when he tried to understand, he came to the conclusion that Karmakand is what is the essence of Vedic scriptures. Again, when he went back and re-studied it, then he came to the conclusion that Jnanakand is the real essence of the scriptures. And finally, when he studied third time, then he came to the understanding that Bhakti is the real conclusion of Vedic scriptures. So, etad buddhva buddhiman syat. So, one who is very intelligent, only he can understand this Guhyatamam Shastra. And Krita Pratyascha Bharata, his endeavors will know perfection. Whatever endeavors he will be doing, that will reach the conclusion. So that is what is explained in this verse by Krishna. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says in the third line of the first paragraph, in other words, by understanding this philosophy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engaging in his transcendental service, everyone can become freed from all contaminations of the modes of material nature. So we saw in the 14th chapter how the modes are binding the living entity, and the way to get out of that is devotional service. So same thing Srila Prabhupada is mentioning here in this purport. And in the last portion of this first paragraph, somebody can read this. The Lord is said to be the sun.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. The Lord is said to be the sun, and ignorance is called darkness. Where the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Therefore, whenever devotional service is present, under the proper guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, there is no question of ignorance.
Yes. So that is how this Guhyatamam Shastram is such that it is highly illuminating and it removes all kinds of ignorance. And then in the next paragraph, Prabhupada explains one very wonderful thing, that unless one comes to this position, however intelligent he may be, in the estimation of common man, he is not perfectly intelligent. So this Krita Pratyascha Bharata. So one may be so-called intelligent in the eyes of material world, but if he has not come to the conclusion of knowing Purushottama, Krishna to be the Purushottama, then whatever endeavors he is doing is simply nothing but a waste of time. Shrama evahi kevalam. And then further, Prabhupada explains the meaning of the word anagha, sinless, that unless one becomes sinless, one cannot understand the Supreme Lord. Tesham yeshantu antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandu moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridabhata. So yeshantu antagatam papam. Unless you are freed from all kinds of sins, one cannot very firmly worship the Supreme Lord. Now, when we hear this, it may give some kind of fear in our heart. Oh, I am so sinful, and how is it that it may, if I'm not purified, then how can I worship the Supreme Lord with great determination? So that means there is something else which I have to do so that I can purify all my sins. So then Prabhupada immediately answers that devotional service is so pure and potent that once one is engaged in devotional service, he automatically comes to the stage of sinlessness. So this is quite hope-giving, that yes, Due to past conditioning, there may be some traces of sinful life remaining, but to the extent we keep practicing Krishna consciousness, to that extent and to that degree, we get purified. And this process of Krishna consciousness only brings us to the stage of sinlessness. And when we reach to the stage of sinlessness, the process of Krishna consciousness becomes more determined. So it is like that. And last part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that how by practicing Krishna consciousness or coming in association with the pure devotees, one is able to surmount the weakness of heart. One is able to surmount the weakness of heart. And what is this weakness of heart? Srila Prabhupada explains two things. One is that the desire to lord it over the material nature, the Purusha Bhava. And second, because of having this desire, one becomes attached to the matter and the possessions of the matter. So these are the two weaknesses of heart, which can be overcome by coming in Krishna consciousness in association of pure devotees. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 15th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of Purushottam Yoga, the yoga of Supreme Person. Let's go to the chapter 16. So, chapter 16 is also called as Daivi Asura Sampad Yoga. What is that means? Sampad means wealth. So one who considers his qualities, either Daivi, that means divine, or Asuri, or demoniac, to be his wealth, so that is Daivi Asura Sampad. Now Krishna has so far, what do you say? He has so far made his supremacy, and he has also established the supremacy of the bhakti. So now Krishna is going to explain that what is in between, the alternatives for bhakti. So Krishna will explain the gradual evolution of the consciousness, or somebody rejecting the scriptures. So it's very clear, gradual elevation in consciousness is for those who are having divine qualities, and rejecting the scripture is for the demoniac people. So this is what is now upcoming in this chapter. And we also saw that the 13th chapter explained the seed of the tree, which is nothing but the desire to lord it over the material nature. And the tree was explained in the 15th chapter with its root up and leaves at the bottom. And it was also explained that the water that nourishes this tree is the modes of material nature, which was explained in the 14th chapter. Now, in this chapter, 16th chapter, the upper and lower part of the tree is explained. So, in the 15th chapter, we saw that Krishna has inspired that they should, everyone should cut this tree. And those who are not able to cut the tree, then what happens? They either go to the upper part or to the lower part. So the upper part of the tree is the divine, and the lower part of the tree is the demoniac. So let's see further in this chapter. Let's see the overview of the chapter. So 1 to 9 is the divine and demoniac qualities. 10 to 18 is the activities of the demoniac people. 19 to 22 is consequences and causes of the demoniac activities. What are the consequences of demoniac activities, and what are the causes of demoniac activities? And then 23 and 24, the last two verses, is the choice between the divine and the demoniac. Okay. So now Let's read the first three verses. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
Sri
Bhagavan Uvacha
Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhir Jnana Yoga Vyavasthiti
Yoga Vyavasthiti
Dhanam Damascha Yajnascha Swadhyayastapa Arjavam Ahimsa Satyam Akrodhas Yaga Shantir Apaishunam Daya Bhuteshu Aloluptvam Mardavam Hrir Achapalam Teja Kshama Dhriti Shaucham Adroho Nati Manita Bhavanti Sampadam Devim Abhijatasya Bharata. Translation, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity, simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy and from the passion for honor. These transcendental qualities, O son of Bharata, belong to godly men endowed with divine nature.
Yes. So now Krishna has begun with the divine qualities, the upper part of the tree. So there are 26 qualities mentioned in these three verses. And let us go through those qualities which the Prabhupada has highlighted and explained in a greater detail. So Prabhupada begins, first of all, Prabhupada begins the purport with how in 9th chapter also it was mentioned about Devas and Asuras. But now, according to Vedic rites, activities in the mode of goodness are considered auspicious. So we saw also that this tree, in the 15th chapter, we also saw that this tree, which is there, has got some fruits. So these fruits are what? Based on the auspicious and inauspicious activities. So auspicious activities causes the fruits like these divine qualities, and inauspicious activities causes the asuri or the demoniac qualities. So that is what Srila Prabhupada is explaining in the first part of the purport. And then Prabhupada explains directly the second last word of this third verse, that is abhijatasya. So what does that abhijatasya means? So Prabhupada is saying that one born of transcendental qualities or godly qualities is very, very significant. So how can be one born in godly quality or transcendental quality? So Srila Prabhupada is explaining there with the help of this garbhadhana samskar. If the parents want a child in godly qualities, they should follow the 10 principles recommended for social life of human being, or the 10 samskaras. So beginning with garbhadhana samskara, that before begetting the child, one should purify one's existence. And Prabhupada gives a very statutory caution. Those who are in Krishna consciousness at least should not beget children like cats and dogs, but should beget them so that they may become Krishna conscious after birth. So that is the explanation of the word abhijatasya. So Srila Prabhupada is beginning with this, that what is the root of all these qualities? Abhijatasya is the child who is taking birth in this world should be given that opportunity in a very conducive atmosphere to develop these divine qualities. Yeah, obviously, after taking birth and staying in this material world, that living entity will also have his own free will. But the part of the parents is to give the initial training and education, and that will be on their part. And then later on, what happens with the child is up to that child's free will. But in general, we see that when such kind of training and education is given and very proper Garbhadan is done, then the child turns out to be in a good devotional atmosphere. He turns out to be a very good devotee, like that. Now, further, Srila Prabhupada explains that the society is divided, the Vedic society is divided into Varnashrama system, with which we know that there are 4 Varnas and 4 ashrams. And based on that, to keep the society up in a proper state, there are certain qualities which every section of the society needs to assimilate, cultivate, or exhibit, so that the society remains in a good situation. So based on that, these verses which are coming, these 3 verses, wherein we are seeing these 26 qualities, out of them some are for some are there for one of the 4 ashramas and one of the 4 varnas. So we'll see gradually which of them belongs to which. Yes. So abhayam sattva samshuddhi jnana yoga vyavasthiti. So these qualities are related to a sannyasi. So what is that abhayam? Srila Prabhupada explains very, very wonderfully that the first qualification for sannyasi is fearlessness. If somebody is thinking, after I leave my connections, who will protect me? If this fear is there within his heart, then he should not accept the renounced order of life. And in this connection, we see from the story of Sridhar Swami, the original commentator on Srimad Bhagavatam, when he was in his family life, his wife passed away just after giving birth to the child. And Sridhar Swami was then in a great concern that how will I now protect the child? And when he was absorbed in this thought, suddenly he saw a small baby lizard falling from ceiling, and just within few seconds, the baby lizard got some insect to eat. So the baby lizard put out her tongue and ate the insect. When this was seen by Sridhar Swami, immediately he took this as a note from the Supreme Lord, that don't worry, for every living entity, I am the supplier. And then he immediately quit his home without worrying for the child nor for himself. So the firm conviction in the protection by the Lord is there. So the abhayam, even if somebody goes there in any part of the world, he always is having his consciousness that I am not alone. Krishna is there with me. My Guru Maharaj is there with me. And when we are reading this, which is written by Srila Prabhupada, it is with such a great conviction, because Srila Prabhupada himself had that conviction when he left India to go to America to execute the order of his spiritual master, with carrying the instruction of his spiritual master in his heart. So in that sense, Srila Prabhupada himself is the example of this abhayam, like that. So that is how we should see. And at the same time, we should understand that fearlessness does not mean that one is foolish. So this is especially meant for one's own self, you know. But when it comes to protection of the community, one needs to make some arrangement for that. When it comes for one's own protection, then he is well convinced that yes, Krishna is there for my protection. Because we see that when there was some attacks on Mayapur, so then immediately the devotees came together and they established the deity of Lord Narsimhadev and also increased the security guards. So that does not mean that the head of the Mayapur temple, maybe whoever is that, that he doesn't have this conviction that, oh, Lord will protect. No, he has that conviction, but as a part of that conviction itself, he is making arrangements to show Lord that we are making arrangements to protect the devotees, but ultimately we are aware that you are the real protector in that sense. So that way it is like that. We also see that Raghunath Das Goswami was in Vrindavan and he was sitting at various places without any kutir. He would do his bhajan. So at one time the tiger came and Krishna had to come with a stick to drive away the tiger. And at other time Radharani was holding her own pallu to protect Raghunath Das Goswami from hot sun at the banks of Radhakund. So seeing this, Sanatan Goswami chastised him and told him to make a kutir and not take service from Krishna and Radharani, but rather to serve them. So building a kutir for bhajan it's not considered against abhayam. Here the word, when we see this word abhayam, it is meant especially for the conviction within one's own heart. So that may not be seen externally, but that conviction is there for this type of person, like that. And then second thing is sattva samshuddhi, purifying his existence. So sattva samshuddhi, so he is purifying his existence. As a sannyasi, it is forbidden for him to have any intimate dealings or relationship with a woman. Srila Prabhupada explains this at a great length in this third, fourth paragraph of this purport. And he gives the example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was an ideal sannyasi who was who never associated with women, and even his women disciples would offer him respect from a distance. And Prabhupada is so sensitive towards the society, seeing the current situation that today's society, if something like this is said, there may be some unrest. So Srila Prabhupada says this is not a sign of hatred for women as a class, but it is stricture imposed on the sannyasi not to have close connections with women. So it's not that something there is issue with women as a class, but the sannyasi has to maintain his purity by not intimately associating with the women. So this is a Vedic paradigm. We have to understand this in that sense. In modern situation, we see that the intermingling is considered to be quite normal. But according to Vedic society, that is forbidden because it provokes the person. So especially sannyasi is completely forbidden to associate. And second thing is forbidden for him is the possession of wealth. So intimate relation with women and possession of wealth for sense gratification is strictly forbidden. So Prabhupada is again using this quite words very choosy, that possession of wealth for sense gratification is strictly prohibited. So possession of wealth is not a problem, but possession of wealth for sense gratification is the problem. So one should not possess the wealth for sense gratification, but only for the service of the Lord. So we know that famous Srila photo came up in the newspapers, wherein the yogi, just because there was some coin or note below his asan, he could not bear that touch of the money, and he was just jumping up. And Srila Prabhupada said, bring all the money we have in our bank and put them in front of me and take my photo in this way, so that I'll show people that I am using all this money in the service of Krishna. So possession of wealth is not a problem, but that should not be done for one's own sense gratification, but only for engaging in service of Krishna. And then the third thing, which the third quality is Jnana Yoga Vyavasthiti, being engaged in cultivation of knowledge. So that sannyasi is always engaged in cultivation of knowledge, and he travels from place to place only to distribute that knowledge. And that is yet another quality of humility is expressed by the sannyasi when he goes from door to door of a household, not to beg something, but to give the transcendental knowledge and to deliver the householders who are entrapped in the activities of household chores. So that humility is also exhibited by a sannyasi while traveling from door to door and distributing knowledge. Yes. So, as Srila Prabhupada says that if he is actually advanced and so ordered by his spiritual master, he should preach Krishna consciousness with logic and understanding. And if one is not so advanced, he should not accept the renounced order of life. But even if one has accepted the renounced order of life without sufficient knowledge, he should engage himself fully in hearing from a bona fide spiritual master to cultivate knowledge. So in this way, sannyasi must be situated in fearlessness, sattva samshuddhi, and jnana yoga. So these are the qualities for the sannyasi. Next, the qualities which are mentioned for grihastha are danam, damascha, yajnascha. So danam is nothing but the charity. So Srila Prabhupada says here, the householder should earn a livelihood by an honorable means and spend 50% of their income to propagate Krishna consciousness. So why this is explained, that why this charity is so important, because we see that first thing is that he needs to come out of this controller mentality. So because the grihastha, because he is earning member, he is doing some hard work, and with that hard work he is earning money. So naturally he may get this feeling that, just see, I am supporting my family, I am supporting the other three sections of the society. So in order to come out of that mentality, he is told that you should just give maximum money, so that you don't feel that you are the doer of your activities, but rather you are helping the society to grow in a positive way. And the charity, to whom to give charity, what is the right kind of charity, all these things will be explained further in the 17th and 18th chapter. So we'll not go into that detail as of now. And Srila Prabhupada also mentions that one should give this 50% of income to propagate Krishna consciousness all over the world. So that way we see that by these guidelines of Srila Prabhupada, in many temples the concept of Nitya Seva is there, wherein the householder devotees, they come together and they offer some portion of their salary for the propagation of Krishna consciousness to the temple. So that is a very important aspect. Second is damascha, or control of his senses. Because the grihastha is always in association with sense objects, various sense objects, especially the greatest attraction or the sense object considered by the conditioned living entity is the opposite sex. and which is very much there with him throughout. So he is told to control his senses, and that's why we see again in the Vedic society there is a joint family stays. So the ladies would stay at a different place, and males would stay at a different place. So naturally there was segregation, uh, and protection was offered in that sense. So unnecessarily use of senses for sex life has to be avoided, and also in other sections of his life, the householder is a householder should be able to control his senses, and because he is very much in close association with various sense objects, so that's why this particular quality is referred for the grasa. But in general, this is a common quality for anyone, the sense control, but especially for them like that. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that if he does not require children, he should not enjoy sex life with his wife. Whereas modern society enjoys sex life with contraceptive methods, which is nothing but demoniac. So like that. So instead of going in the demoniac zone, one is supposed to go to the divine area. And then the third thing is sacrifice. So Panchasuna, the 5 kinds of sacrifice, or the Agnihotra, all that sacrifices are mentioned for the Grihasthas. But Srila Prabhupada says that these are all very expensive and very difficult to perform in this particular day and age. So the best sacrifice is Sankirtan Yajna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And everyone can adopt it and derive benefit. So these 3 items are meant, charity, sense control, and perform sacrifice are meant for householder. And then the next item which is mentioned is Swadhyaya, which is for brahmacharis. And brahmacharis are supposed to study the Vedic literatures. And we also saw in the section of sannyasi, Srila Prabhupada said that if sannyasi is not confident enough to preach with logic and refute, then he should study the Vedic scriptures under the guidance of bona fide spiritual master. So this Swadhyaya continues actually up until the point of sannyas. So this is a very, very important aspect, because we see that when brahmachari does his scriptural study properly, then what happens is when he enters into the Grihastha ashram, he is well aware about the fallacies of this material world, and he makes sure that he doesn't get trapped by illusions of this material world. So that is very, very important. So that's why he is given some time and training and education and allowed to study Vedas and cultivation of spiritual knowledge. And then further, so but in modern scenario, we see that because we see in Vedic society, the brahmacharis would go to Gurukul at the age of 5 and come out of 25. And today's scenario is that at the age of 25, people are becoming brahmacharis. So it happens that many times the brahmacharis, apart from their own study, they also become preachers, which is actually the quality of a sannyasi. Sannyasi is supposed to preach, and brahmacharis should supposed to render menial service to the sannyasis. So that verse is there. Brahmachari Guru Kule Vasandanto Guru Hitam Acharan Dasavan Nicho Guru Sudruda Saurudam. What does brahmachari do in Gurukula? Vasandanto Guru Hitam. He is simply staying there for the pleasure of Guru. Acharan Dasavat Nicho. And he is Dasavat, like a servant, a menial servant. He is serving his master and performing very, very menial services, and because of that he develops a very intimate and close relationship with his spiritual master. Acharan dasavati cha guru sudruda savrudam. And he becomes very close at heart to the spiritual master. So that is what brahmachari is expected to do in the ashram. And then tapa is the quality mentioned for vanaprasthas. So why it is like that? Because after studying Vedic literatures in brahmacharya stage, he enters into the grahastha stage, and he is there with various kinds of sense objects, and he has got that habit to be with the sense objects, but he is also told to do dhamma, control the senses, and only then will be able to retire timely from his grahastha life. And when he does that, then he is supposed to perform now austerities, so that whatever the remains are there of his life, whatever the tinges are remaining, so he starts wiping them out by tapasya and austerity. And Prabhupada explains that these austerities are of body, mind, and tongue, which are again explained in next chapter, 17th chapter. So that is meant for vanaprasthas. And then comes arjavam, the simplicity. So Prabhupada explains this is a Brahminical quality. Not only should a particular order of life should follow this principle, but every member is supposed to have this quality of arjavam, very simple and straightforward, not duplicitous, not having cheating mentality, doing something else and saying something else, not like that, but simple and straightforward, like that. Again, that does not mean he is naive and always gets cheated, which was the topic of last session, the final questions. So not like that, but in general, he is very simple and straightforward. Then comes ahimsa. Srila Prabhupada explains, means not arresting the progressive life of any living entity. What does it mean, not arresting the progressive life? Is that the living entity is progressing from one yoni to another yoni, and there is some process going on. So if suddenly the living entity is killed in that body, then he has to again take birth, because he has not yet completed that. So then he has to undergo again that pain of birth and all other things. So, and especially Prabhupada talks about no animal killing, as we also saw this in the 13th chapter, the process of jnana, there also it mentions. So yes, somebody can read this part of the purport. Real ahimsa means.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Real ahimsa means not checking anyone's progressive life. The animals, sorry, 1 second. The animals are also making progress in their evolutionary life by transmigrating from one category of animal life to another. If a particular animal is killed, then his progress is checked. If an animal is staying in a particular body for so many days or so many years and is ultimately killed, then he has to come back again in that form of life to complete the remaining days in order to be promoted to another species of life. So their progress should not be checked simply to satisfy one's palate. This is called ahimsa. Hare Krishna.
This injunction is also for everyone, and Prabhupada explains that there is ample supply of grains, fruits, and milk, and there is no necessity of killing the animals. And then Prabhupada also puts one line that when there is no alternative, one may kill an animal, but it should be offered in sacrifice. So that killing also should not be done whimsically, but with proper process, if there is no other alternative remaining, which is a very rare thing. In general, now with the we see that everywhere all these kinds of things are available, one can easily sustain. But just to satisfy the 1.5 inch size of the tongue, people are simply killing animals on a mass scale, like that. So one should not check the progressive life. Yes. Then next is Satyam. So this word means, yes, somebody can read this.
Satyam. This word means that one should not distort the truth for some personal interest.
And Prabhupada goes and explains that people, for the sake of their own personal interest, they twist the words of Vedas and try to bring out their own meaning, not giving the real meaning. Yes, next.
Akrodha means to check anger. Even if there is provocation, one should be tolerant. For once one becomes angry, his whole body becomes polluted. Anger is the product of the mode of passion and lust. So one who is transcendentally situated should check himself from anger.
Yeah, so this is very, very important. Like yesterday only there was one incident wherein one of the devotee had gone to the shop for getting some things, and the person was taking too much time. So the devotee was getting frustrated, and he called me and said, "Prabhu, it's taking so much time. What am I supposed to do?" So then I told him, "Give me the phone to the shop person," and I yelled at him. And as I yelled, all my body limbs started trembling. And then immediately I thought, oh, maybe I am under mode of passion because this is how the effect of studying Gita. So then I immediately kept myself on a lower note. But the point is like this, that when one becomes angry, then whole body becomes polluted. And you can practically see that the eyes are becoming red hot, the lips are trembling, the voice is on a higher scale, and body limbs are trembling, hands and feet. So one who is transcendently situated should check himself from anger. So what is the best means? What should we do when such anger arises? Yes, any thoughts? What can be done when such anger arises?
We should think that whatever situation is there, so this is for my purification. And if I control and tolerate the anger, then I am actually purifying that.
Yeah, that is very nice. But practically, if we analyze in our life, when such situation happens, to think like this at that moment is so very difficult. Anything else?
Just
You should move away from the object of anger, Prabhuji. From what you're getting angry, you should just kind of isolate yourself.
Move away from the object of anger. Okay, that's also one good solution. Yes, anything else?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I have one question. Sorry. But there are situations where you have to show that.
Is it okay if we take the question after we hear from the devotees about?
Sure, Prabhu.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, we just need to think that anger is because of the materialistic or it is towards Krishna conscious point of view. Okay, and then you just need to do some kind of introspection, Prabhuji. That's all. I could think.
See, this is also very nice suggestion, but if we all have experience that there is no time to think when that kind of situation comes. That particular time, what can be done? We can, other times we can think, yes, that I agree. Whenever there is no provocation, and in a normal way, yes, we can think about such things and try to make our consciousness ready. So that is right. But when that particular situation is come, then what can be done?
Keep quiet, Prabhuji.
Keep quiet, yes, very good. Something more than that?
Chanting, Prabhu.
Yes, chanting. That is very, very important. If you remember one pastime of Prabhupada, And Prabhupada was getting, yelling at the devotees in one occasion. So one of the newcomer, he just said to Prabhupada, why don't you chant Hare Krishna? So obviously Prabhupada's anger was not coming out of passion, as Prasad was mentioning some time back. But still, just to set an example, when that person said, he immediately started chanting. And recently I was hearing one class from His Holiness Bhakti Bhagat Swami Maharaj, and he was mentioning that he was in a particular meeting or something like that, and some devotee, he just said something very provocative. And that time Maharaj was leading that project, and Maharaj became very angry. Oh no, not meeting. In Bhagavatam class, somebody asked a very provocative question. So Maharaj was about to get angry, and Maharaj said, I simply took my bead bag and started chanting in front of all the people and in the Bhagavatam class itself. And then after a few minutes, when he got calmed down, he said, can you please repeat your question? And then that devotee repeated the question in a modest way. And then Maharaj also answered in a very Maharaj explaining this, that helps. Counting 10 or something. So better than counting is thinking. Am I audible?
Yes.
Slightly breaking. Now we are better, Prabhuji. No problem.
Oh. So yes. Any other? Okay, fine. So this is a way. If anger comes, then we can keep quiet, chant. If needed, go away from that place for some time and then come back. Obviously, sometimes going back may also offend the person. So by staying there, try to chant within our own mind and then cool down and then respond instead of reacting immediately. Yes, very good. Yes, Praveen Prabhu, yes, you had one question.
Yes, Prabhu. So there will be situations where when we are dealing with other people, or where we need to get work done, or you're in an office and you have to work with your subordinates. You have to show that emotion, Prabhu. Otherwise, you won't get the work done, and that is required as part of your duty, your job. How do we deal with that kind of situations, Prabhu? That passion is required and that emotion is required at that time. If we keep quiet or go away, the work won't be done, and it will be detrimental to your job.
Yes. So always practical application of knowledge is the most difficult part. Very easy to speak, very easy to hear, but when it comes to application, most difficult thing. Yes, I agree with this. So wherever there is a need to
I have
exercise,
one small session. I have one small session, Prabhu, here. If
Yes,
you're
Prabhu.
okay, I can give that. I will try to give that, Prabhu. Okay.
Yes, please.
See, instead of we getting angry, sometimes we just need to act, Prabhu, saying that we really got angry. That's what sometimes I do.
No, I did not get you.
Just need
Can you
to.
please?
I didn't
No,
understand. Prabhu.
sometimes like yeah, sometimes like instead of we really getting angry, we just need to pretend that we are in angry mode. So that
Yeah.
itself will resolve some problems. Instead of
Yes,
taking
so
it to heart,
that is what
that angry,
Praveen Prabhu
we
was
just need to
asking.
pretend that we are really angry. Yeah.
Correct. So while we are also
We just need to
pretending,
pretend sometimes. Yeah.
yes, while we are also pretending, we have to be sure that we are actually pretending and not actually getting angry. Because the tendency
Yeah.
of the conditioned soul is that we tend to go in passionate zone. That is there always. The fear is there. So that is why we should, while even pretending to be angry, we should be very, very careful and cautious that we don't actually become angry. Because there are cases wherein we fall trap to that. So it would need great amount of practice, and to the extent we are situating ourselves in sattva guna in most of the time, to that extent it will be easy to pretend anger. Otherwise, to begin with pretending anger, and we'll end up in anger. So how to get things done without getting angry? It's a very, very big question, because people in this world are also in a very, very different, distorted state. And to get them back to do the work, maybe there's some kind of anger may be needed. So we all actually need to work. Even as a brahmachari, I can see that when I have to get things done from labors, and while the construction work is going on, so it happens, the anger comes up. So but we have to really work upon that we don't become unnecessarily angry, and our anger doesn't engulf ourselves. We remain, we control the anger, not we get controlled by anger. So that's the biggest challenge, but eventually Krishna will give us the intelligence how it can be done.
Yes,
I'm not sure whether I have fully answered your question.
Yes, Prabhuji, I think the last part is well said, in the sense, yeah, we have to show anger, but we should not get controlled by anger, and it comes with practice. It's not very easy practically, but yes, Prabhuji, that helps. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yes, the next item is Apaishunam. Somebody can read this last part.
Hare Krishna. Okay, I'll just continue this, Prabhu. So next person.
Yes,
Apaishunam means that one should not find fault with others or correct them unnecessarily. Of course, to call a thief is not fault finding, but to call an honest person a thief is very much offensive for one who is making advancement in spiritual life. Hare Krishna.
So this also to some extent answers our previous discussion. If somebody is having some not working very well, then to chastise him and to correct him is not a problem. But again, that should not take us to the zone of anger. So to correct him, to chastise is all right. So, but to call somebody an honest person as a thief is offensive. So that should be avoided. So we see that devotees are the one who delight in the glories of Krishna and his devotees. So they are always apaishunam. They don't find faults with others. They are always delighting in the glorification of the devotees, like that. Yes, somebody can read this.
Hare Krishna, may I read it, Prabhu? Okay. He means that one should be very modest and must not perform some act which is abominable. Abominable. Achapal.
No, that's it. So the modesty has to be there. As we say that a modest dress or something like that, So not means gentlemanly way, as Prabhupada said that my devotees are gentlemen in the society. So in a gentlemanly way, everything has to be done, not abominable. Yeah.
Achapalam, determination, means that one should be agitated or frustrated in some attempt. They may be failure in some attempt. Okay. They may be failure in some attempt, but one should not be sorry for that. You should make progress with patience and determination.
Yeah.
The word tejas used
is very
here
much
is mean
important.
For
just a minute, Prabhu. So it's very, very important that we are also practicing Krishna consciousness, and again pertaining to the same question which was asked, that how to express anger without getting angry. So there will be situations where we may end up in anger instead of showing anger, but one should not get agitated and frustrated. Failures will be there, but they are like stepping stone, and with patience and determination we continue the practice, and eventually Krishna will give us the right intelligence to be in the material world but not get caught up in the material world. Yes, please.
Yes, The word tejas used here is meant for Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas should always be very strong to be able to give protection to the weak. They should not pose themselves as non-violent. If violence is required, they must exhibit it. But a person who is able to curb down his enemy may, under certain conditions, show forgiveness. He may excuse minor offenses. Hare Krishna.
So the Kshatriya is supposed to exhibit teja, not become a cowardly, but be able to fight whenever there is a need. And at the same time, if he finds that the enemy is ready to bow down and surrender, then he also shows forgiveness. So this is quite amazing, And on one hand, he is ready to bring somebody down, and at the same time, as soon as the person has surrendered, he is ready to forgive. So Kshatriyas are also, supposed to exhibit such kind of qualities. Yes.
Okay, I'll continue. Okay, Saucha means cleanliness, not only in mind and body, but in one's dealings also. It is especially meant for the mercantile people who should not deal in the black market.
So we saw this in 13th chapter also, that the internal and external cleanliness, Shuchi, the internal cleanliness by chanting Hare Krishna, external cleanliness of the body and mind. And here Srila Prabhupada is now adding one more thing, is the one speeding. And especially for the mercantile class, that is Vaishyas. We should not deal in black market. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Nati Manita, not expecting honor, applies to the Sudras, the worker class, which are considered according to the Vedic injunctions to be the lowest of the four classes. They should not be puffed up with unnecessary prestige or honor and should remain in their own status. It is the duty of Sudras to offer respect to the higher class for the upkeep of social order.
Just like I was mentioning in the context of Brahmachari, that how he is Achara Dasavan Nicho, that he is like a servant serving very menially to his spiritual master and other seniors. Similarly, the Shudras, who are the working class of the society, are supposed to serve the other three classes and not unnecessarily get puffed up by their false prestige. So that Nati Manita is especially for them. And then Srila Prabhupada explains in the last paragraph of the book. Yeah. Please go ahead.
All these 26 qualifications mentioned are transcendental qualities. They should be cultivated according to the different statuses of social and occupational order. The purport is that even though the material conditions are miserable, if these qualifications are developed by practice by all classes of man, then gradually it is possible to rise to the highest platform of transcendental realization.
So just like we saw that 15th chapter, Krishna is giving us the head to cut down the tree of attachment by detachment. And if somebody is not, then we saw that he transmigrates. And then further, what happens is that if he takes up to the bhakti, then he is able to cut down the tree. But then here in the 16th chapter of Krishna is offering the alternatives for the bhakti, that either one may choose this progressive path of liberation, or one may choose the demoniac nature of rejecting the scriptures. So till now, this first three verses we saw the qualities of those who have taken up to the progressive path towards liberation. So now next see what Krishna further says about the demoniac people. Dambho darpo bhimanascha krodha parushyamev cha javijatasya
Ajnanamanda
Jnati
Parthasampadamasurim.
Partha Sampadam
Parthasampadam
Asurim.
Asurim.
Translation.
Pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These qualities belong to those of demoniac nature, O son of Pritha.
Yeah. So we saw till now the divine qualities, and now Krishna is explaining the demoniac qualities. So Dambha is what? Is nothing but to make a show of that how I am a religious person, or just to make a show in the society of one's being religious. One shows it like that. So that is Dambha. And then Darpa, or the arrogance. So just like we have these two kind of people, egoist and egotist. So egoist person is the one who thinks that how great he is, how great he is than so many others. An egotist person is the person who always speaks about how great he is. So if there is a talk going on amongst the people, so if somebody says, I have just recently visited this place, so then the person who is an egotist will immediately say, oh, I have visited that so many times and this and that, and he will keep on telling his own story. So this kind of darpa and damba, damba is to show how great he is, or how great spiritualist he is, how great religionist he is, just to make show, nothing inside actually. And then abhiman is what? Is man, means respect, always demanding respect from others. So whatever capabilities and qualities he is exhibiting, he is expecting that everyone should now offer him respect. And krodha, always he is in an angry mood. So we saw just now that how the akrodha is a transcendental quality or divine quality, but here we are seeing that krodha is exhibiting krodha. So that also gives us a alarming bell that we don't want to enter into these demoniac qualities, and that is also one trigger which will help us to not get ourselves entangled in krodha. And parushyam is what? Harshness. Just like we saw in the previous verses, that is modesty, or then there was also mardavam, softness, gentle way, that is mardavam, gentleness. Whereas here the opposite is parushyam. He is very harsh. So krodha is exhibiting anger, and then parushyam is always being in a harsh mood. So like that. And ajnanam cha abhijatasya. Again, the word abhijatasya has come over here. So we saw that in the previous three verses also, that abhijatasya word was there, and we understood the meaning of that word as when the proper mood is set for the parents while begetting the child, then such divine qualities would be seen in the child. Whereas ajnanam cha abhijatasya, if the begetting of the children is done in mode of ignorance, then what will happen is all these things will come up. Damba, darpa, abhimanascha, krodha, parushyam, yamacha. Partha sampadamasurim. O Partha, these are sampadam. This is the wealth of asuras. So asuras, they are having this as their wealth. So like that. So these demoniac qualities, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, are taken on by them from the beginning of their bodies in the wombs of their mothers. And as they grow, they manifest all these inauspicious qualities. So we see even in the case of when Duryodhana was born, so many inauspicious signs were seen. And immediately Vidura told Dhritarashtra that just give up this child, he will cause the destruction of whole family. But because of his attachment, Dhritarashtra could not give him up. And we saw that how eventually Duryodhana turned out to be exhibiting all the demoniac qualities. Like that. Yes. Next verse. Daivi sampad vimokshaya
Daivi
Sampad
Sampad
Nibandhaya surimata
Nibandhaya Surimata
Srimata
Mahashucha sampadam daivim
Mahashucha Sampadam Daivim
Abhijatosi Pandava.
Abhijatosi
Pandava.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. The transcendental qualities are conducive to liberation, whereas the demonic qualities make for bondage. Do not worry, O son of Pandu, for you are born with the divine qualities. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Daivi Sampad Vimokshaya. If somebody has wealth of divine qualities, then Vimokshaya. He is leading towards liberation. Nibandhaya Asuri Mata. But if somebody is having Asuri qualities, then Nibandhaya. He is going to get further bound. So after hearing these two lines itself, Arjuna's thought, oh my God, Krishna, you are telling me to engage in the war and I'm expressing my anger and violence over here. And all these things happen to be Asuri qualities which you just now described. So I am also Asuri person. So what about that? And then Krishna is immediately giving him encouragement by saying, Ma Shucha Sampadam Daivim Abhijatosi Pandava. Hey Pandava, oh son of Pandu, don't worry. You are not Asuri. You are born with Devi Sampada. You are born with divine qualities. And what you are doing as a matter of expressing violence and war is nothing but as my order to establish Dharma. Even Krishna, when he is coming into this world with various incarnations, is one of the activities Vinashaya Dushkritam. So he is destroying the Dushkruti, those who are doing any wrong activities. So that way, don't worry, you are not engaged in any kind of demonic activities. Srila Prabhupada says, for a Kshatriya, a military man, shooting arrows at the enemy is considered transcendental, and refraining from such a duty is demoniac. So for Kshatriya, he has to fight. He has to exhibit his anger, just like we saw in the Teja, the word Teja, that he has to express violence when needed, and he has to forgive also when needed. So same thing. The Kshatriya is supposed to fight, and if he is not fighting, then actually he is entering into Asuric qualities, because he is not rightly situated in his status, social status. So that also Krishna has said in the 3rd chapter, that Paradharma Bhayavaha. Everyone should practice his own dharma and not unnecessarily take up another's dharma. So what is that dharma? It is in terms of varnashram. So whichever status of life one is situated, one should try to execute that duty rather than taking up as somebody else's duty, thinking that grass is green on the other side. So no, that should be avoided. Therefore, there was no cause for Arjuna to lament. Anyone who performs the regulative principles of different orders of life is transcendentally situated. So, this is about Krishna giving a brief consequences about briefly explaining the final result, rather we can say. The final result of Devi Sampada is Vimokshaya, and final result of Asuri Sampada is Nibandhaya. Dvau bhuta sargau lokesmin
Dvau bhuta sarga lokesmin
daiva asura eva cha
daiva
Daiva
eva cha
eva cha.
daivo vistarasha prokta
daivo
Daivo
sarasa
vistarasa
prokta
prokta.
asuram partha me shrunu.
Asuram
asuram
partha me
partha
shru.
Translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I will read. O son of Pratha, in this world there are two kinds of created beings. One is called divine and the other demoniac. I have already explained to you at length the divine qualities. Now hear from me of the demoniac.
So here Krishna is saying, Daivo Vistarasha Prokta. I have spoken about divine qualities in great detail. To be very specific, we just see Krishna has spoken about divine qualities only 3 words, 1, 2, and 3. And Asuram Parthameshwaro. Now you hear about Asura. So from verse number 7 onwards, Krishna is going to talk about Asura quality 7, 8, 9, and then further the consequences of that in the further verses. So in one sense, only 3 verses are spoken. So how is it that, why Krishna is saying that I have spoken Vistarasha? So actually, in one sense, if we see that the situation is of battlefield and Krishna wants to give the essence of everything in a very short time, this is just before the war is going to begin. So in that sense, when Krishna is speaking 3 verses, that is, in great detail only. Second way we can see this in as follows, that Krishna has been speaking about transcendental qualities in various chapters. In chapter 2, Sthita Pragya, he spoke. In chapter 3, also he spoke some things. In chapter 4, then in chapter 6, in chapter 12, he spoke 8 verses. In chapter 13, again 4 verses. In chapter 14, of Gunatita person. So like that, various places Krishna has been speaking about the divine qualities. And now Krishna wants to focus on those who do not accept the Vedic scriptures, like that. So that way, Krishna wants to inform Arjuna about those people who are not taking up scriptural life, and they are simply getting bound, like that. So here Prabhupada says in the purport, one who does not follow regulative principles. Can somebody read that?
Yes, ma'am.
One who does not.
16.6. One who does not follow the regulative principles as they are laid down in the scriptures and who acts according to his whims is called demoniac or asuric. There is no other criterion but obedience to the regulative principles of scriptures. It is mentioned in Vedic literature that both the demigods and the demons are born of the Prajapati. The only difference is that one class obeys the Vedic injunctions and the other does not. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So this is what Do Bhuta Sargo Lokesmin. Krishna is giving here the 2 kinds of living beings. That somebody will take up to the Daiva, and then somebody will not follow the Vedic scriptures, then he will become Asuri. Now Krishna will briefly explain how these Asuras deal. Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha
Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha
janana vidurasuraha
Janana
vidurasuraha
na shaucham napi chacharo
na saucha
na satyam teshu vidyate.
na satyam techu vidyate.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Those who are demonic do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Neither cleanliness nor proper behavior nor truth is found in them. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah. So, demoniac are those who are not aware what is pravrutti and what is nivrutti. What is pravrutti is engagement, the senses in sense gratification, and nivrutti is to refrain the senses from sense gratification. So they are not aware about all these things, and they are simply engaging the senses in sense gratification. They don't even have any proper cleanliness. Na api achara. Their achar is also not proper. Na satyam teshu vidyate. And truth is not found in them. As mentioned. So these are the qualities of demoniac persons. So they don't know all these things. So Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport in the second part about the achar. So somebody can read this first part of the second part paragraph. As for behavior.
As for behavior, there are many rules and regulations guiding human behavior, such as the Manu Samhita, which is the law of the human race. Even up to today, those who are Hindu follow the Manu Samhita. Laws of inheritance and other legalities are derived from this book. Now, in the Manu Samhita, is clearly stated that a woman should not be given freedom. That does not mean that women are to be kept as slaves, but they are like children. Children are not given freedom, but that does not mean that they are kept as slaves. The demons have now neglected such injunctions. They think that women should be given as much freedom as men. However, this has not improved the social condition of the world. Actually, a woman should be given protection at every stage of life. She should be given protection by the father in her younger days, by the husband in her youth, and by the grown-up sons in her old age. This is proper social behavior.
So Prabhupada is explaining that how if these laws are followed, then the society remains in proper state. And if they are not followed, if somebody is coming up with their own ideas of how things should be, then what results in this, what we see in modern day? Everything is going topsy-turvy. They are thinking in the name of giving some liberation to the woman, but they are ending up with the intention of exploiting women only. They want to give so-called freedom to the woman. So this is what Prabhupada mentioned, that this is demoniac mentality. People do not want to follow the scriptures, but want to concoct their own laws and then run the society. And actually that way it only ends up in big chaos. Yes. And then now we'll see what is their understanding. Now here we saw that they don't have proper behavior, they don't follow the scriptures, they don't have cleanliness, and how do they think about this world? Asatyam apratishtham te Jagadahuranishwaram
Jagadahuranishwaram
Aparaspara sambhutim Imanyat kamadhaitukam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. They say that this world is unreal with no foundation, no God in control. They say it is produced of sex desire and has no cause other than lust.
Yeah. So, asatyam, this world is unreal. And we have a class of people in this world who say that this world is unreal. Brahma satyam, jagad mithya. So it's not like that. Apratishtham, it is without any foundation. Yes, after the end of this life, you will simply enter into nirvana, zero. There is nothing, there is no foundation behind this. A Jagadahur Anishwaram means there is no Ishwar to this Jagat. It is unreal, there is no foundation, there is no any master. And aparaspara sambhutim, kimanyat kama haitukam. That only it is produced because of sex desire, and there is no other cause than lust. So this is what the demoniac people say. And people simply conclude that somebody takes birth only because of some two people coming together, forgetting what is the law of karma, forgetting what is one's past life. They don't have any understanding about this. So there are people in this world even today, they think like that, that I am simply the result of two people coming together. No, it's not like that. That is not only the cause, but there is something behind that also that is not known to them. They are simply focusing on this aspect. But actually, we can see that material nature is the cause of manifestation. Prabhupada is mentioning here. Yes, somebody can read this last part of the purport. As many living creatures from there, as many living creatures come out from perspiration.
As many living creatures come out from perspiration and from a dead body without any cause, the whole living world has come out of the material combinations of the cosmic manifestation. Therefore, material nature is the cause of this manifestation, and there is no other cause.
Just a minute. Just a minute. So here Prabhupada is establishing that it is not a pratishtham. It's not that there is no foundation. There is some foundation. Yes. Go ahead.
They do not believe in the words of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Maya dikshena prakriti suyate cha characharam. Under my direction, the whole material world is moving. In other words, among the
demons. Here, Prabhupada is further saying that material nature is the cause, and there is cause even for the material nature, and that is Krishna. Yes.
In other words, among the demons, there is no perfect knowledge of the creation of the world. Every one of them has some particular theory of his own. According to them, one interpretation of the scriptures is as good as another, for they do not believe in a standard understanding of the scripture injunctions.
Yeah. So this is how the demonic people have understanding about this particular material world. Now we'll see what is the result of such demoniac people. Etam drishtim avashtabhya nashtatmanulpabuddhayah prabhavanti Kshayaya jagato hitah.
Following such conclusions, the demonic who are lost to themselves and who have no intelligence engage in unbeneficial, horrible works meant to destroy the world. Hare Krishna.
Yes. So who have lost themselves and who have no intelligence. Nashta Atma. Why you are saying Nashta Atma? Atma can never be lost. So why it is said like that? Nashta Atma.
Because of demoniac qualities, probably.
Have you all undergone the book Ishopanishad?
Yes, Prabhu.
So what is the word similar to this word in Ishopanishad?
Killers of Atma, killers of soul, Prabhuji. There is a verse. It says killer of soul.
Yes, Atma. Correct. So nobody can be killer of soul, or there cannot be a something lost. Soul cannot be lost. But then what is the meaning?
Can go into the hellish.
Degrading the soul, degrading one's evolution.
Yes. So degrading from the human level towards lower living, lower species of life. So that is Nashta Atma and Alpa Buddhaya. So because of being less intelligent, they are simply thinking so many ideas about this world. Whereas this word Alpa Buddhaya comes. Remember in 7th chapter, Krishna is talking about those who are demigod worshippers.
Abuddhaya.
So Abuddhaya was the word for those who are worshippers of impersonalism. And Alpa Medhasa was the word used for less intelligent worshippers of demigods. So Abuddhaya means worshippers of impersonalism have no buddhi only. They have no intelligence. At least demigod worshippers are Alpa Medhasa. They are less intelligent. So Nashtatma Alpa Buddhaya here also. Who have here Alpa Buddhaya means as good as no intelligence. Extremely less. So as good as no intelligence. And what they do? Prabhavanti Ugra Karmana. They are simply engaged in horrible kinds of activities, which are basically human needs something to eat, some simple things to sleep and protect himself and his family. That is what he needs. But to unnecessarily provide the desire of the living entity, and so such a big factories and all these things are created. Like recently I was at the petrol station filling the petrol. So it was a new petrol pump, and there was some issue with the pump. So I was just wandering around, and I was just wondering, such a huge arrangement, such big fuel tanks they have made to store the fuel. Then the fuel is transported from one place to another, and it is first it is drilled. The earth is drilled inside the ocean, and then it is taken out. Then it is refined, and so processing is done. Then it is transported. My God, why this is just made to make the car run from one place to another, so that the person can quickly reach the place of his sense gratification. So such a big ugra karma for no idea, why he is doing that. He has no idea about it. So prabhavanti ugra karmana kshayaya jagato hitaha ahitaha. And he is simply whatever his activities are there, they are totally unbeneficial for this whole world. So like that. So in the middle part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, they try to enjoy this material world to the utmost limit, and therefore always engage in inventing something for the sense gratification. Such materialistic inventions are considered to be advancement of human civilization. But the result is that people grow more and more violent and more cruel to animals and cruel to other human beings. They have no idea how to behave toward one another, like that. So this is the result of cultivating demoniac qualities, and we are in such a world wherein such qualities are propagated and considered to be the wealth of person. And the more one has this, then the more person is considered to be great. So that's why there's a great challenge for us in the society. But as Srila Prabhupada has given us this formula of distribution of books and Harinam, and by that we can hope and pray that by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this golden period would continue for up to 10,000 years, and thereby there will be some change in the society. But and as far as our life is concerned, we try our level best to cultivate ourselves and give the message to others as far as possible, so that we don't degrade ourselves to demoniac qualities, but rather go towards the divine qualities. Or to be more specific, take up to the process of Krishna consciousness in such a seriousness that the divine qualities will automatically develop. Hare Krishna. So, any question?
So Prabhuji,
So
we Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, yes.
So when I go through the demonic and the divine qualities, right? So I see that actually coming from a demonic qualities. So that's how I see myself. Okay, and the divine qualities are like the ultimate qualities which are mentioned over here. So we are like in a Majdar right now, and it creates a doubt, it creates a frustration, and so as well. So any tips or any uh, help in terms of how we should look at these things and say the knowledge that we are receiving, and also look at our life as well.
Yeah. So certainly, maybe it's a part of your humility you are expressing, but certainly when we are reading scripture, the first thing should be this only, that what it has got for me. So that way we can actually read scriptures very nicely and assimilate it in our own life. So when we read in this mood, then we can find, okay, these are the places where I need to work, and then I will work upon this by some proper guidance, and then thereby I can make some advancement. But as we discussed, that there are the 4 stages of progression in anything, wherein initially there is incompetence and ignorance. So there is no knowledge and there is incompetence. But now when we read scripture, we get some knowledge and still there is incompetence. And then finally there will be some competence, but not yet fully skilled at it. And finally one will be completely competent, like that. So these are the stages which one has to undergo. And the first stage of that is to admit and acknowledge what is the things that need to be improved. And once we admit and acknowledge, then gradually Krishna will help us how we can go beyond these. And certainly Krishna's help will be only there when we take help of devotees. So we admit and acknowledge to at least one devotee who is very close to us, maybe our close friend or our counselor or whoever. So we take help from them and guidance, and then go ahead. Like
that. Okay, thank you, brother.
Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Dandavat pranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat pranam.
Hare Krishna.